Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Engel Angle Podcast. I am Mac Engel. Before I introduce my guest, Mr. Jesse Holley, I want to talk about a significant achievement that I just crushed in my life. So, on a recent trip, I had to go to Iowa, but flying into Des Moines was ungodly expensive. Apparently, flying any place these days, other than major airports, is ridiculously expensive. So I had to be in Ames. I had to be in Ames. And I couldn't find any place that was remotely reasonable flying into. I'm talking like $800, $900 out. And so I flew into Minnesota. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I got an idea, I can do it. I flew into Minneapolis, rented a car, and I drove to Fargo, North Dakota. Now, why in God's name would anybody go to North Dakota if you didn't have to? Because by visiting North Dakota, I have now visited all 50 states. Only took me 50 years to do it. I visited all 50 states. I'm going to hold for applause here and just any reaction you might have, like, oh my God, that's amazing. I didn't think anybody could do that. Yes, I have visited all 50 states. Now, Fargo is almost like cheating because it is right on the Minnesota line. So you cross the line and there's Fargo. But I'm there, I did it. The first place I went to, there's not a lot to see in Fargo, imagine that. North Dakota State University is there. Actually, Fargo has a really nice downtown. Broadway is really nice and plenty of gambling options. I didn't know that. There were some really depressing casinos there. So I went to the Fargo Visitor Center. And this nice woman comes out and she says, have you visited North Dakota before? And I said, nope, this is it. I said, this is my first time, but I have now visited all 50 states. She says, oh yeah? Do you want a shirt? Yes, I want a shirt. What a stupid question. Yes, I want a free t-shirt because it was free. And by visiting Fargo in North Dakota on my 50th state, I am now part of something much bigger than just me. I am now part of the exclusive 50 for 50 club. Apparently, legislators and people in the North Dakota Tourism Board about 10, 12 years ago, I didn't even know North Dakota had a tourism board, realized that people who visit North Dakota, oftentimes that is the 50th state, that on their quest to hit all 50, North Dakota is last for obvious reasons. People think, well, it's got to be Hawaii or Alaska. No, Hawaii, Alaska usually is much higher on the list because those are tourism draws, right? Hawaii for sure. And Alaska, you can do cruises up there or go to Juneau, or I went to Fairbanks a long time ago I went and covered a basketball tournament. So I knocked that one out, but North Dakota had remained the last one on the list for a long time because like anybody else, why am I going there? Like what's to do there? There's apparently a very nice national park that's hell and gone from North Dakota. It's Theodore Roosevelt National Park, but that's on the western part of the state. That's like 100 hours from Fargo. So they give me a free t-shirt. They give me, free is very important to me. They give me a little certificate. Now I'm part of the 50 for 50 club. And I noticed there in the Fargo Visitor Center, there's a wood chipper. I'm like, why do they have a wood chipper here? For fans of the movie Fargo, you're going to know this right away. In one of the last scenes in the movie in Fargo, Steve Buscemi's character, who's already dead, gets shoved down a wood chipper. And they have the actual wood chipper from the movie there in the lobby of the visitor center. Needless to say, I took pictures. I did visit. And I went to a restaurant there. There was a Guy Fieri restaurant. It's a pizza place called Blackbird. I went to some museum that had some big Viking ship. That was kind of neat because this is very important to me. When I told my aunt about this, she said, did you spend the night there? Because it doesn't count if you didn't spend the night. And I know there are a lot of people out there who hold to that rule, that it doesn't count that you visited someplace unless you spent the night there. And I thought about this for a long time. And I thought, no, that doesn't count. That's not right. Because there was one time I was in New York And I've been to New York 1,000 times. My dad's side of the family's from there. But I had gone to New Jersey. I had flown into New Jersey, gone to a Cowboys game. It was 2 in the morning when I was done. It was a night game. And I don't get to my hotel, which is in LaGuardia Airport, which is in Queens, technically New York, till 2 in the morning. I left like 1 o'clock. Took me forever to get to Queens. I get to my hotel. Well, I'm in my hotel for about 4 or 5 hours, if that, probably closer to 3 or 4, and that's it. Because my plane the next morning left at the crack of dawn, before the crack of dawn. So technically, if I hold myself to the standard of you have to spend the night there, technically I spent the night in New York, but it only lasted for like 3 hours and I didn't do anything. So that doesn't count. Certainly visiting the airport doesn't count. Landing doesn't count. Driving through it doesn't count. In my mind, to say that you visited a state or any place, you have to do something that is unique to that area and that city, a real experience there that you can look at the map and say, oh, I did that there. I visited Disney there. I visited Crater Lake in Oregon there. I visited the Grand Canyon. Because that's going to take you a couple of hours. So when I visited North Dakota, I saw Fargo. I ate there. I spent money there. Didn't spend the night there, but I have an experience that is unique to the state, to the city, that say, I visited North Dakota. And by doing that, I have now visited all 50 states. Next up, every city in the world. My guest for this episode is a fascinating guy with a story that you won't even believe. In fact, this was so good, I'm probably going to do another episode with him to get to the other part. He is known as Mr. Fourth and Long. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with that television show, he was part of a reality TV series that was essentially a glorified tryout for aspiring NFL players who it was a Michael Irvin, the former Dallas Cowboys wide receiver, idea. And it was his television show. And the whole idea was whoever is picked, whoever has the best camp on this reality TV show will get a spot on the training camp for the 2010 Dallas Cowboys. And the guy who won that is Mr. Jesse Holley. Jesse was born and raised in New Jersey to less than great circumstances, went on to star as a basketball and football player at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. That's incredibly hard. You think about that. That means he was a top basketball player in the ACC and a top football player in the ACC. That doesn't happen very much. But to get to the Cowboys took a lot of bumps, a lot of potholes, and a lot of obstacles that would have probably knocked most people away from their path. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me introduce to you Mr. Fourth and Long, former Dallas Cowboys wide receiver, Jesse Holley. Where are you these days, Jesse?
I'm working all over now. I work with DallasCowboys.com. Uh, I work with Believe. I work with A to Z Sports, and I just started my own podcast, Unfiltered with Jesse Holley.
Yeah, I've heard that. It's
So,
pretty good.
yeah.
So when I was looking up your bio, like I've known you for 10 years now, and I knew you were from New Jersey.
hmm
I knew you had played college basketball and college football at North Carolina, which not many people in this lifetime have ever done. So if college sports, forget the NFL, but if college sports hadn't worked out the way for you, the way it did, or just sports in general, what do you think your life would be like right now?
Great question. Man, I don't know.
What was your
um,
life like as a kid? I don't know that much about your background when you were in Jersey. I mean, was it
yeah, like
good,
sports.
bad, horrible, great?
Yeah, sports saved my life. It gave me a purpose. It gave me a. I was. I mean, I was a troubled kid. I grew up. My mom was a drug addict. My father was a drug dealer. I was raised by my grandmother with my two brothers. I'm the middle of three boys, and even at a young age, I would shoot. I used to be kind of unbeknownst to me, but knowingly. was a drug runner, right? Like
Were you really?
they would say, yeah, yeah, they would be like, hey, little Jess, put this in your book bag and get on the bike and go across town and drop it off,
Did
and
you know what it
we'll give you
was?
20 bucks.
Did you know what
20,
it was?
huh?
Did you know what it was when they gave you the drugs? Did you have any idea what it was?
No, you didn't. I mean, you like at first you don't look. They'll tell you don't look inside the bag, right? You just go and drop it off, and you 50 bucks, whatever it was. But then eventually, I realized, and then we used to steal the. When I used to live in this apartment. If you look through my peek hole on the front on the first floor, we had like these metal mailboxes that set like to the side, and it was a mailbox where you stick the key in and lift it up and reach
Yeah.
in. Well, what they started doing was they were gutting the mailboxes out, and they would stash their drugs at, and they would stand outside in front of my building. And so, like the key would open the mailbox, but then they would take the guts of the mailbox out, and that's where they stashed their drugs at. And so you can look in the mailbox and figure out which ones it were, and we would steal them. We would steal the drugs, and then again go on the other side of town and get way less than what they were actually worth. But when you're a poor 8-year old, 9-year old, 7-year old, you got to do what you got to do to eat. And there were times where my mom would be gone 3, 4, 5 days, not knowing where she was at, and I had to take care of my little brother. So I mean, those like that's the path that I was. That's the world that I was in. That was the life that I had lived at an early age. Then I moved with my grandmother, and it got a little bit better because she was just was stable. She had a stable job. It didn't make much money, but it was just a stable situation. I knew that she would be home every day. I knew that she wouldn't be gone for 3 or 4 days. And the neighborhood was a little bit better than where I was, and but trouble found me, or I found trouble as much as I possibly could. And it was stolen cars, it was things like that. And then I found sports on accident. Literally, like we all did the Pop Warner stuff and all that, but I wasn't really good. It was basketball that really changed the trajectory of the life of Jesse Holley, and that was a friend of mine who I was just like roaming around the neighborhood looking to get in trouble. He's like, "Man, what you about to do?" And I'm just like, "I don't know," because like we would just like I would just like walk by cars and like jiggle on the handles, and if it opened, I would go in the car and steal like all the CDs out, or I steal all of the change out of the ashtray or cup holder. Like I'm walking around with like $8 worth of change in my pocket because I went in 3 or 4 cars. You know what I mean? And he's like, "Hey, I'm about to go to basketball practice. Won't you come with me?" And I'm like, "All right."
Oh,
So I
wait,
jump.
wait, Jesse, time out. How old were you when this was going on?
I mean, all this is happening between the ages of like 7, 8, up until middle school,
Okay. So
right?
7 to 12.
7 to 12, 4. I mean, I was still stealing cars in high school. I
You
was
were
one of the,
stealing cars?
I was one of the top recruits in the country in New Jersey, from out of New Jersey, and I was in stolen cars.
Okay, this is I didn't think this was going to go this route. I didn't. No, I knew you. I kind of knew a little bit, Jesse, that you had grown up in a disadvantaged background, but I didn't know what that meant. So
Yeah,
this would have been what, in the 90s,
yeah,
early 2000s?
90s. 90s. I graduated high school in 2003.
Okay, how did you steal a car? How do you steal a car?
Oh, I mean, back in the day, you can get a Honda quick. Like you can get a Honda quick back in the day. I mean,
So
it
what
was
would you do with it? Just go sell it?
yeah, we would sell parts. At the time, if you had a Honda Accord, a Honda Civic, like now today, like they call it the Kia Boys,
Yeah.
and they're getting all the Kias. Like that was the Hondas of the 90s. And it was just an easy and then like all the like and if you had a Honda, and at the time you put a stereo system in there, like you put like and they had the detachable face of the radio, like you push a
Yeah.
button and the face comes
Yeah.
off. So they didn't detach. We would take the detached face. You take, I mean, just parts, and a lot of times we would do it just for joyriding. Like literally, like the last time, like I knew I had to make a decision. We had stolen a car. We had stolen a red Honda Prelude. Me and three other my friends, because we wanted to go to the skating rink and no one can get a ride there. And so we looking around
Stole a
like, well,
car to go to the skating rink?
go to the skating rink. and like that was the last time, and we stole this red Honda Prelude, and it was four of us, me and my three friends, and like, and the only ways the skating rink was called Skate 22. If you anybody's from New Jersey, from that is 60 years to like younger, like Skate 22 has been like a historical skating rink in Jersey for years. Um, and there were certain nights that it like you had teenage night, you had over 21 night, then you had like the old head night. So it was like everybody had a night, so everybody could participate. And that's when you met girls, and it was so you didn't want to miss the moments, especially when they were going. You knew it was going to be like it got talked about in school.
Yeah.
But the only way to really get there is two ways to get there. The other way you have to take it's a crazy detour. Like it's way too long to take. But the other way coming from Roselle is um you got to go through Kenilworth. And Kenilworth is a predominantly white neighborhood. And literally there is always if you went through Kenilworth today, there's probably a cop that's sitting at this intersection, right? There's always cops at this intersection, and I don't know the name of the intersection, but there's a Dunkin' Donuts, there's a post office. There used to be when I was there, there was a mom and pop gas station, mechanic spot on one corner, and then there was another corner that had a kind of 7-Eleven type corner store called Krausers. And we were driving through that intersection, and the hope was, man, we hit this green light, we just keep it pushing, no problems. But we got to the red light, and the car broke down.
Like it just did it die?
It just broke down.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what happened. Like this was,
How
like
old
this.
were you? You 16?
I'm in high school.
Okay.
I'm one of the best football basketball players in the state of New Jersey. Like I'm literally I'm literally I'm one of the top recruits in the country. Literally. Um and this car breaks down, and so we for whatever reason the cop wasn't there. And this is how I this is the spiritual side of me, when I know that God truly had his hands over my life and had a much bigger plan for me, because we ended up pushing the car like into the mom and pop gas station mechanic area. Sorry, if you hear snoring, that's the dog. That's the dog just like at my feet snoring. It's a I got a 130-pound Connie Corso. So if you hear him snoring, that's him. Um, and so we pushed the car in there, and it's the winter time, and so Krausers is open, and so I tell the guys, "Hey, I'm going to Krausers to get a hot chocolate. Does anybody want anything?"
So you
Because I'm like,
offered you offered to get him something.
"Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." I'm like,
Okay.
because now we have to plan this thing out, because we're literally halfway point from the skating rink,
Okay.
halfway point from going back home.
Okay.
So it's like, how do we finish the time? And this is
And the car's
low.
boosted.
It, it's stolen car, but it's not working, right? So that's the last thing you want, is a stolen car that ain't working in a predominantly white neighborhood. And this is the day there is no Uber or Lyft. Those days don't even exist. Like
Right. And
they're
you're not
so
calling, there's
awful.
no cell phone to get a cab, nothing.
Nah, it's. I don't think we even had enough money to get a cab to go. If we got a cab, we didn't have the money to get into the skating rink. You
Okay.
know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
like like we're stuck. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I go into Krausers to get um a hot chocolate, because it's wintertime. I'm like, and the thought process is we're gonna have to walk
How
the
long
rest
did
of the
you
way.
walk? 10 miles? 5 miles?
Maybe another 15, 20.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
You're
like,
in.
but
No,
it's
okay.
it's like it's like 15, 20 either way though. So it's like
Dude, that's a haul.
we're gonna take the 20 back home, or we're gonna take the 15 there. And if we get there, the funny part is like, people say like, well, how do you get home? Well, if you get there and you can't sweet talk a girl to get you a ride back home, then you just deserve not to get back home. You know what I mean? So like that was the plan of it all. But I go into Krausers to get the hot chocolate, and literally as I'm coming out of Krausers, the police pull up.
Ooh, you had to be terrified.
I'm literally standing in the door of the crowds. I was watching them about to arrest my friends. And I knew at that point in time, it was like, yeah, you need to decide what you're gonna do. Because if you would have been across the street and they arrested you for a stolen car, Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, North Carolina, Miami, Virginia, Texas, Oakland, it's done.
So
You're
did
done.
your
Penn
friends
State, you're
ever?
done.
So none
You
of
see,
your friends, Jesse, none of your friends said, "Hey, that guy, he was with us."
no,
Those are pretty
no,
good friends.
no.
Did
Mm-mm.
you ever, since you were passing along drugs, did you ever try them?
Mm-mm.
Why not?
I seen what it did to my mother. I seen what it did to my family. I seen the effects that it had on the people closest to me. Alcohol, drugs. I like
Didn't
still
want to.
to this day. I don't drink.
I
Like
was gonna
I'll
say,
have
I don't think you drank. Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'll have a celebratory glass of champagne. I may have a glass of wine once in a blue, but hard liquor.
Well, how old were you? See, this is your normal, as dysfunctional as it is,
Right.
as hard as challenging as. How old were you when you realized, man, for lack of a better word, this is pretty fucked up?
When you live in the dysfunction and you're around it for so much,
Yeah,
it takes a while for you to actually realize that, oh, I was really in some foul stuff.
yeah.
Man, it years, man. I probably I was like maybe in my like late 20s, early 30s.
Wow. So it wasn't when you were being recruited by Carolina, any of those places, it didn't dawn on you?
Mm-mm.
Jesse, so you go to North Carolina on football and you walked on at basketball, which is that's unheard of. I think didn't Julius Peppers do it?
And Ron Curry.
Okay, so you've named three guys out of out of a very select few that are lucky enough to go there. But when you went to Chapel Hill is an
And
amazing.
let me be very clear with that as well as Carolina was going to offer me a basketball scholarship as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So
and
this
so
wasn't like, hey, who's this guy? They knew who.
no,
Okay,
no, 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 no.
okay.
So the here's where it got a little bit dicey, just to kind of give you the backstory on that. Roy Williams didn't offer me a scholarship. When I was being recruited by North Carolina, it was Matt Doherty,
Okay.
right? And so Matt Doherty was actually he came to see another kid named Mike Nardi, who ended up going to Villanova and was a part of that Villanova group with Jay Wright. It was Mike Nardi he was a white point guard.
Yeah.
He went to St. Pat's. It was Mike Nardi, Allen Ray, Allen Ray, and Kyle Lowry, and who was the other guard? I don't know. He's from New Jersey as well. Shoot, he played in the NBA for a while. Anyway, but it was it was Mike Nardi, Kyle Lowry, Allen Ray, and
What year would that have been? I can look it up.
man, 2003, 2004.
Keep going.
But in that guard, so he came to see Mike, and I ended up scoring 40 points. And we were down 20 at halftime. I scored 40 points in the AAU game, and then they began to recruit me as well. And so it was of the mindset of this kid was out of North New Jersey. This basketball player, I can't think of his name.
Randy Foy, Alan Ray,
Randy Ford. Randy
Randy Foy.
Ford. That's
Okay.
it. Randy Ford. Yes.
Okay.
Um, and what it came down to was, well, hey, we only get 8 non-scholarship for basketball. You get 85 for football. Just take the football scholarship and you'll just be a walk-on for basketball. That way now we don't have to. And I said, okay, cool. Where it got tricky was when they fired Matt Doherty.
But
Because I had
Roy Williams was the coach of Kansas. He would have known who you were.
Yeah, but so when I talked to Roy, this is literally what Roy said to me. This is literally what Roy said to me. He said, you are He says it's clearly that you have the caliber to play at University of North Carolina, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. He says, but you weren't a guy that I was going to pick. So he said, but what I will do is I will honor what was told to you in the deal that was agreed upon, but you'll earn everything that you get.
That's fair.
That's all I asked for,
Yeah,
right?
that's
That's
fair.
all I asked for. And so he gave me that, but he wasn't like, and I get it. His thing is, I got a new team, I'm in a new situation. I want to bring all the guys that I want. And
Right.
so I wasn't a guy that he was looking to build with. But it all worked out in the end, and I became one of Roy's favorites. And every time I see him, it's all love.
That's great.
Um, but yeah, so that was a process of how it all went down.
So, Jesse, when you went to Carolina, and for those people who aren't familiar with Chapel Hill, it's truly one of the great college towns in America. I love Chapel Hill. My mom went to school there. It's an amazing place.
Really?
Yeah, long time ago. She went to North Carolina when it was only a 2-year school for girls. So you'd have to
Oh
go to
wow.
St. Mary's. Is St. Mary's still there?
Yeah.
It's like a boarding school. So she had to go to St. Mary's, which was a junior college, and then she went to Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
And that was, like I said, that was a long, long time ago. And so, I love it. It's an amazing place, but it's a predominant from where the few times I've been there, it's predominantly white college town. So
Mhm.
you go from New Jersey, where you're used to one way of life, and then you go there. And when I've talked to college student athletes who are black, and then they go into these environments that are predominantly white, maybe relatively affluent, it's a different world, and the immersion for that can be really difficult. Was that difficult for you to transition from, hard life in New Jersey to all of a sudden now you have everything, you're a popular, unheard of two-sport athlete with all these maybe mostly wealthy white kids?
Yeah, the hardest transition that I had going from New Jersey to Chapel Hill was I didn't trust anybody. I
It's
didn't trust a soul.
even coaches,
I didn't
teammates,
trust a
nobody.
soul. I
Okay.
didn't trust a soul.
Why not?
But that's my environment that I grew up in. Like I grew up in an environment where everybody had an ulterior motive. The minute you let your guard down, if you showed a sign of weakness, they use it against you. Like so. So my
Wait,
initial
let me time out. You didn't trust anybody, but in the most pivotal moment of your life, you're walking out of that store with a hot chocolate, and your three guys who stole the car with you are getting arrested, and they didn't finger you.
Mhm.
How, like that's that's a trust moment for me, but that doesn't register in those moments.
Not me. Like to me, that's a moment where if
That's just
you
what you do.
you get caught, we don't get caught, right? Like
Yeah.
you gotta hold that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a you thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like if we all ran
Yep.
and I got away, it's not, oh, he's over there. Like
You don't do
you
that.
you would suffer more consequences back in the hood
Mhm.
if you snitched or you told in a situation where, you know, I got away. I got away. It wasn't like I
You
told
didn't
on.
run. It wasn't like you ran. You just went to get to
Yeah,
hot chocolate.
I mean, you guys could have come with me. You didn't have to stay there. So it wasn't a situation where it was like I set them up, or it
Yeah.
was like I just so happened to get away.
So you're at Chapel Hill now. You're 18, 19 years old.
Hmm.
What was that immersion process like in terms of trying to let your guard down and maybe trust this girl you want to date, this assistant coach, this head coach, this teammate, this quarterback, this wide receiver? Did you ever get there?
It took a while, and I don't think I would say in my college year I never fully quite got there. Like,
Do you now?
I'm more reluctant. I'm not more. I'm more open to trusting people now
Mhm.
than at that time. Like it would be things where like I didn't understand Southern hospitality at all. No clue. No clue.
Do you
And
believe
so,
it?
huh?
Do you believe it? Southern hospitality?
Yeah, it's a thing.
Okay.
It's a thing. It's really like when you come from up north and you come and you're in the south, it's a complete different type of feel. But again, I'm fresh from the concrete jungle of New Jersey, so I get to Chapel Hill, and you're in these. They'll have freshmen, and then when you're one of the best freshmen in the country, you got to go to all these alumni, and you got to do all that kind of stuff. So I'm sitting there. It's funny. I saw a picture the other day. It's like my freshman year. You can find it online. It's my freshman year football profile picture. I am stone faced. I am
Tough
stone
guy,
faced.
serious.
But I look at the picture now
Yeah.
as a almost 40-year-old, and I go, I can look at that picture and see how much hurt and pain and anger
Yeah.
was in that kid,
Were you
right?
scared?
Like,
Were you scared?
yeah, like everything. Like it was a mixture of everything. You know what I'm saying? And I can see it in when I look at the picture, like I kind of almost like want to hug the picture because I'm like, that's me, but that kid is there's so much hurt, there's so much anger, there's so much just volatility pinned up in that kid, in that picture. But like these people will be like, hey, we went to Carolina, we've been alumni for Carolina, we 40 years, 50 years, and we're just so happy you're here. And we know that you're from New Jersey, you're far away from home, and we cook dinner every Sunday. If you want to come by for a meal, you're more than welcome to. And my response to stuff like that used to be like, no, like I don't know you. Like what do you want from me? And they're like, nothing. Like we want to make
You
sure
didn't.
that
You didn't. Did you say that?
yeah,
Oh,
yes, yes. Because that was my approach. My approach to everything was just it was brash, it was upfront, it was aggressive, it was hard. That's just how I that's how you were just blunt. And and like I remember my teammates being like, bro, you gotta chill. Like you like people aren't all out to get you, And I'm just like, oh, you don't know them. Like them people don't know me from a kid. I just got here, And it was the same thing with girls. Now I will be completely honest with you, and this is gonna be a race thing or whatever it may be. Is I've I've never been with a woman outside of my race,
mhm,
and you would think, I'm at a predominantly white institution.
mhm.
I'm a two-sport athlete. Right?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
I
There's
was so
opportunities.
like one, it just I didn't come from that culture, so it wasn't something that I was comfortable with. And then two, I was so afraid because you hear all of the stories. Black kid goes to the South, is an athlete, gets with a white woman, and all of a sudden, white woman says rape, says this, says that, and now you're hung, right? Like you're done.
Right.
And I like literally carry that like it I that was I was like, and when I tell you there were opportunities and I was like, no. I spent a lot of time. One of the nearest HBCUs were North Carolina Central, which is in Durham. um, so if it wasn't in between the small black population of females at North Carolina, I was at NC Central, um, trying to meet women over there because they were black. And
Right.
like so, like this is the mentality that I come to North Carolina with.
So you have a career that I still don't think enough people, sports fans, can appreciate how hard it is to do what you did. To be a two-sport athlete at an ACC school is unheard. I mean, it's not unheard of, but it's incredibly rare, right? You can appreciate it. We talked about Julius Peppers, Bo Jackson, with two-sport guy at Auburn. Dion was a two-sport guy, although I don't think he played college baseball. Maybe he did. I forgot. But anyways, you did it, and then you finish your college career, and you have a shot to go pro. You signed as a free agent with the Bengals. Is that right?
Yes.
Uh, you played for the Cowboys, the Bengals, and the Patriots, and I think you had a stint briefly in the CFL. Is that right?
Say that again. Sorry,
Did you?
you
Did
broke
you
up.
so if I have this right, you signed with the Bengals. That didn't work out. You were with the Cowboys for 2 years, and then you briefly signed with the CFL team, and then you went to the Patriots. Could you tell a difference? Because I hear horror stories about the Bengals all the time. Were you there long enough to get an idea, to sit there and say, this is a bad organization?
Yeah. So the Bengals, I signed as a free agent. I was there all of no rookie mini camp, OTAs, mini camp, training camp. I was released and then signed again, and I was there for 9 weeks
Okay.
of the season, 9 or 10 weeks of the season. Yeah, I got released in like late October, November. So it was like 9 weeks, 10 weeks, or whatever it was. Um, and I'm not crapping on the city, but the city is terrible. Like
I was
I
born
hate,
there.
I hated Cincinnati.
You didn't like it?
No, no. I lived in Covington, Kentucky, right over the bridge.
Yep.
I hated Cincinnati, and it was exactly like at that time it was a dysfunctional organization.
I've
It
heard
it
that.
it it was extremely dysfunctional,
Did
and
they
I was
charge you for anything? That's one thing I've heard from other players is that they would charge play. Now, this is a long time ago. They would charge players for hats, socks, shirts. That they would charge players.
yeah, 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 like all that stuff is yeah, like
That's
the
all
Bengals.
true.
Yeah, it's horrible organization. I shouldn't say that at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
At that time, I'm sure it's come a long way until now, but at that time, it was just, it, like the players, the coaches, like, and I remember Marvin Lewis telling me when he signed me, he was like, he said, I almost didn't sign you, and I said, well, why is that? Which, by the way, was a dumb decision by me to go to Cincinnati. Just let me tell you this right now, like it was.
Where else could you have gone? Did you have other teams offer you?
Oh man, I was a preferred free agent. I had like 8 teams that offered me,
Why'd you pick
and
the Bengals?
they gave me the most money.
Oh, you were the first person ever for the Bengals to give more money to over anybody.
Like I like at the time, like hindsight is 2020. Of course, my career probably would have been a 10-year career if I go and sign with the Rams. If I go and sign with Baltimore,
Anybody
right?
other than Cincinnati. What did they
Well,
give you? How much did they give you? Fifty
they
thousand
gave
dollars?
me huh?
$50,000? $100,000?
No, it was like 18,000. It was 18,000. It was $18,000, and like the Rams and Baltimore, they wanted to give me like 10. And
18 grand.
had I thought about it, I'm like, I didn't see. This is a lot of things that young people don't know about the business side of things. Because I thought, well, I'll just come in and I'll compete for a spot.
Yeah.
Not when they're paying Chad Johnson at the time $8 million. They had just paid like that year that TJ Hutchinson, Chad Johnson, Chris Henry. I mean, all these guys were high draft picks and being paid. So I had no concept of. I was always just like, if you put me in a room with dogs, I'm gonna come back with the bone, right? And I was like, until you get to the National Football League, it's like, yeah, I can put you in a room with a lot of dogs, and you're never going to get the bone because they make $8 million and they make $3 million, and you make $600,000. And so they're always going to get the first, second. And I didn't have a concept of that. I didn't understand what the business of the thing. I thought, hey, let's just go and compete. And it was never. I never got that chance to kind of truly go out there and compete because money always trumps anything in the National Football League. And so that was my biggest mistake, going to a place where they had three receivers already, and I didn't understand about the special team side of things either. I didn't know any of that. I thought you just played football. Like I just thought like I can go out there and compete and play football and I'll win. And it was the furthest thing from the truth.
So the Bengals don't work out. And I've read in your bio, and that's Wikipedia, that you go back to North Carolina and you're working as a security guard.
Hmm.
And then you get a call about joining the Michael Irvin reality TV show Fourth and Long. Did you have any hesitation at all about doing that? Did anybody or even yourself say, man, why am I doing this? Or were you like, nope, I'm all in, let's go do it?
Now, when you was as broke as I was, anything sounded good. Like when I say I was broke, like I say I was broke. Like
What
I
were
didn't
you
have.
living?
I had a family friend, like an aunt named
Yep.
Auntie Gina, and she let me stay at her place, and I slept in the back room on a futon. And like in return, I would like she had two boys. I would watch the boys when she went out of town and kind of be a mentor to them, and like but she let me stay rent free. I just had to sleep on a futon, and that's when I started working as a security guard, and I started working at T-Mobile, and I worked as security at night and T-Mobile in the day.
So you get
And
a shot to do the Fourth and Long TV show, which for those of you people, it was a reality TV show. And the whole idea was whoever wins the 4th and long contest of all these aspiring NFL players, they'll get invited to a Dallas Cowboys uh,
Training camp.
training camp. So you win it. When you won it, which is a big deal, how much did they pay you for winning that? Did they pay you for that, Jesse?
Yeah, but it was pennies.
There's nothing. So you get invited to
But
training.
the guests that they had come on, like Terrence Newman, Woody, Roger Staubach came on, Moose came on.
Yeah,
Eventually I became teammates with Terrence Newman,
right.
and I was one day I was like kind of like I'm like, hey man, like what you get to cut like what did they give you to come on the show? Because he was there for maybe like 3 hours. He's like, oh yeah, they gave me 10 grand for 3 hours of work.
Yeah, I
I
was
was like,
working.
wait, what? Literally, I got $2,500 like to when I won the show. It's like,
So you
yeah.
get on the show, and then you get into training camp. And for people who don't, again, this people don't know to make what you just talked about is not enough people know if they've committed to you, you're going to make the team. They hadn't committed to you. You had to earn a spot. When did they tell you you've made the team? You're on the active, that you're going to be a part of the Dallas Cowboys.
So funny thing is, and I got to give a ton of credit to two people. One is God rest his soul, Coach not Jody, Coach Joe Avazano.
Really?
Yeah, Joe Avazano was a coach on the show, and then after I was done, because Jason Garrett refused to give me a playbook because I wasn't at OTAs, I wasn't at minicamp, I wasn't at any of that. So understanding, I'm walking in the training camp and I have zero idea of what this offense is. I don't know anything about this. Joe Avazano, through his
And he was the
connection,
offensive coordinator. Jason Garrett was the offensive coordinator at the time, right?
correct,
Okay.
correct. Uh, Joe Avazano at the time, through his connection with the Cowboys, we would sneak into Valley Ranch, and Sammy, who's a longtime film guy,
Mm-hmm.
would sneak us into Valley Ranch, and we would be at the time when Sammy was like he was like an intern. So we were in this small closet, like it was like a small with TVs where he used to have to cut up film. He was like his intro to the job, and what they used to do was they used to record every single meeting after every single OTAs, after every single minicamp practice. So I would go in there and literally be in there 10 hours watching all of the practice film, watching all of the meeting film. I mean, for days. And I would write down in a notebook every single thing, like handwrite every single thing in there. And we would sneak in, we would sneak out because we weren't supposed to be there. Um, um, and I did this for, man, maybe 2 weeks until I got enough information to kind of at least give me some sort of understanding of what they were talking about. So I wasn't walking into the situation totally blind when I got to training camp. But I didn't get a playbook. I didn't get a playbook until the day I stepped foot in San Antonio at training camp.
You make the team. You're there in 10. Jason becomes the head coach in the middle of 2010. They fired Wade Phillips. You make the team again in 2011, and then you play a handful of
So,
games.
so, so let's back up. So
Okay.
after the training camp situation, I made the practice squad,
Practice squad.
which was to me, I had been out of football for 2 years. I was working security, I worked at T-Mobile. To make the practice squad and be making, I forgot at the time, $7,000 a week, $8,000 a week.
You had to be
I was
made it.
I'm like, this is it. And I'm one play away from being elevated. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, that's a big deal.
and so I'm in the system now, right?
Yeah.
I'm in the system. So that was the first part. And then so I spent my first entire year um on the practice squad there, which I was fine with. Like I was totally fine with. I'm like, as long as I'm here, I'm working, I'm learning. But the funny part about it was Jason never wanted me.
Why?
Jason
That's
Garrett
when
never
you weren't his guy.
I wasn't his guy.
Yeah,
They had a guy, Travis Wilson, who was a wide receiver out of Oklahoma.
I remember him.
And they had to release him because at that time, remember, I was the 80th man on the training camp roster. So to get to number 80, you couldn't have over 80.
Right.
So they had to release him. And the plan was to release, and I found this later on. My wide receiver coach, Coach Sherman, Ray Sherman, told me this. He said the plan was to bring you on, release Travis, bring you on for a week, let the hoopla kind of happen, and then kind of die down. You won't get any reps. You'll just kind of be an afterthought, and then release you, and then bring back Travis, and then continue on about our business, as they did in OTAs and minicamp. Well, after kind of a week, 2 weeks went by, Jody Camillus took a liking to me because of the way that I worked on special teams. And then I just did everything at 100 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour. So Wade Phillips was like, give him another week. Give him another. Well, let's see him in the two. And then it came down to the last preseason game was Minnesota, as when I picked up the punt that wasn't kicked to me. I was the jammer, and I ran it back 82 yards for a touchdown in the final preseason game at Minnesota. And then Jerry, after the game, Jerry says to me, I've been around football my whole life. I've been around the Cowboys for like 30 years or whatever he had said. He said, I've never seen a football play like that before in my life. Good job. And like that solidified it for me. That was to me kind of, you good, right? Like if nothing else, it's like you left a lasting impression of where, to the point where they kind of like, we kind of like dubbed the name of, always pick the ball up and give it to the ref.
Yeah.
Because of something like that, because I picked up a punt and took it back to the house. So that's how I got on the practice squad.
Jesse, I've only got a minute left and I got to go. Do me a favor, plug your podcast and anything else you're doing. I really appreciate this. I didn't.
Yeah, we got to come back and do part 2.
No, I know. I totally will. We might do that later, but I totally will. Because there's other things I wanted to ask you. Plug your podcast for me real quick.
Yeah, man, you guys can catch me on Unfiltered with Jesse Holley on YouTube. Please, Fourth and Long on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, MR4THANDLONG, Mr. Fourth and Long. But man, please go check out Unfiltered, like, subscribe, tell a friend, Spotify, Apple, all those places, man. It is something that I've avoided for a long blessing, and it'll bless you. It'll bless you if you just, from the start to finish, if you just give me 15 minutes of your time, Unfiltered with Jesse Holley, you're going to love it.
Jesse, we're going to do this again. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.